Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most absolutely staggering corporate journeys of the 20th century. We are talking about the monumental rise of Dhirubhai Ambani. This is a man who built what is arguably one of the most powerful and definitely one of the most influential corporate empires in Indian history. If you've ever wondered how massive conglomerates literally rise from absolutely nothing, well, you are in for a masterclass today. Just to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of what he built, consider this number. By 2017, his company, Reliance Industries, employed over 250,000 people. That is the population of a whole city. It comfortably sat in the Fortune 500 as one of the world's largest companies by revenue. The economic footprint here is just massive. But, to really appreciate the view from the summit, we have to start at the very bottom of the climb.
Chapter 1: The 350-square-foot Empire.
The story of this corporate giant is, honestly, one of incredible contrasts. The very first office of the Reliance Commercial Corporation was set up in Masjid Bunder, Mumbai. And get this, it was a tiny 350-square-foot room. They had exactly one telephone, one table, and 3 chairs. That's it. They relied on just 2 assistants to help run the whole shebang, while Ambani and his family actually lived in a super modest 2-bedroom apartment nearby.
So where did it all start? Well, Dhirubhai Ambani was born in 1932 in Chorwad, Gujarat. He was the son of a village schoolteacher, and his early career actually took him far from home, working in Aden, Yemen, where accounts say he even spent time working as a petrol vendor at a gas station. The real pivot, though, happened in 1958. That's when he heads back to India, completely determined to tackle the textile market and start his own business.
Chapter 2: Founding Reliance Industries. So how does a humble trading operation turn into a total monolith? Initially, Ambani teamed up with his second cousin, Champaklal Damani. They started a venture called Majin. The business model was brilliantly simple: import polyester yarn and export spices back to Yemen. But, as often happens, the 2 men had totally different temperaments and completely different philosophies on risk. That clash in risk appetite meant they eventually ended their partnership in 1965, and Ambani decided to strike out entirely on his own.
That solo journey leads us to a massive turning point, 1977. This is the year Ambani takes Reliance public. It's a completely game-changing milestone because it laid down the capitalized foundation for the empire, an empire that would soon bring his 2 sons, Mukesh and Anil, into the fold. But for the everyday person in India, this was revolutionary. It suddenly brought retail investors into the world of corporate wealth creation, which basically changed the Indian stock market forever.
Chapter 3: The Bear Cartel Controversy.
Now, massive growth rarely happens without some serious friction, and this era was like a financial thriller that really tested the limits of his newly minted empire. In 1988, Reliance faced a rights issue with partly convertible debentures. A group of stockbrokers from Calcutta, who became known as the Bear Cartel, saw an opportunity. They started aggressively short-selling Reliance shares, trying to tank the price. But then an unprecedented countermove happens. A mysterious group called the Friends of Reliance swoops in and just starts buying up all those short-sold shares. The trading volume was so intense that it literally forced the Bombay Stock Exchange to shut down for 3 whole business days just to sort out the crisis. In the end, the cartel had to buy back the shares at a higher price, and rumor has it, Ambani himself supplied those shares, walking away with a huge profit. This whole sequence of events is wild, and it naturally raises a huge question, one his critics and the press were shouting from the rooftops at the time. How on earth did a guy who was literally just trading yarn a few years prior get his hands on the immense cash flow needed to completely outmaneuver a powerful financial cartel? Well, the answer actually unfolded in Parliament. The finance minister at the time revealed that a non-resident Indian had poured up to 220 million rupees into Reliance between 1982 and 1983. This money was routed through some very creatively named Isle of Man companies. We're talking names like Crocodile, Lota, and Fiasco. And get this, all the promoters of these companies shared the exact same surname, Shah. Now, to be completely clear, an official investigation by the Reserve Bank of India ultimately found no unethical or illegal acts committed by Reliance or its promoters here, but it certainly added to the lore.
Chapter 4: The End of an Era.
Navigating through all those intense corporate battles, the accusations of cronyism, the market manipulation drama, it took a very real physical toll. In February 1986, Ambani suffered his first major stroke, which paralyzed his right hand. It was a massive wake-up call for the company's structure, and it prompted him to hand over a lot of the day-to-day control to his sons, Mukesh and Anil. Years later, on June 24, 2002, he suffered a second major stroke. He spent over a week in a coma at Breach Candy Hospital in Mumbai and sadly passed away on July 6, 2002 at the age of 69.
The impact of his passing was truly felt across the entire country. Former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee summed up his legacy beautifully. He called him iconic proof of what an ordinary Indian, fired by the spirit of enterprise and driven by determination, can achieve in his own lifetime. And whether you view him as a controversial figure or an absolute industrial pioneer, you really can't deny that his fiery spirit of enterprise completely rewired the Indian business landscape.
Chapter 5. A Dynasty Divided.
But, the story doesn't just stop with his passing. It almost immediately spirals into a dramatic division of his life's work. Without the patriarch there to steer the ship, tensions between his heirs finally surfaced. By November 2004, Mukesh Ambani publicly admitted in an interview that he had differences with his brother Anil over ownership issues. The massive, monolithic empire that Dhirubhai had built from that tiny 350-square-foot room was essentially split right down the middle. Mukesh took over Reliance Industries Limited as CEO, and Anil became chairperson of the newly formed Reliance Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group. Now, back in 1988, a journalist named Hamish MacDonald actually wrote an unauthorized biography called The Polyester Prince, which outlined a lot of Ambani's political and business conquests. But, facing legal threats from the Ambani family, the book was never officially published in India, though an updated version called Ambani & Sons did finally go on sale in 2010. So, as we wrap up this explainer, it leaves us with a fascinating question. With such fiercely guarded narratives, how much of Dhirubhai Ambani's immense, complex, and sometimes controversial footprint is still just waiting to be understood by history? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep learning and always keep questioning.